Hi, hello and welcome back to F1 Challenge VB. My name is Mephisto and our epic journey through the history of Formula 1 continues today with the 10th and final round of the 1963 season, the South African Grand Prix. It was held on the 28th of December, it had 23 entries, 20 of them took part in the race with 6 ending up retiring. The race consisted of 85 laps completed in 2 hours, 10 minutes and 37 seconds. Jim Clark started the race from pole with Brabham in 2nd, Gurney 3rd, Surtees 4th, Bandini 5th and Graham Hill started from 6th. After a superb drive, Jim Clark won the South African Grand Prix from Gurney, who finished 1 minute 6.8 seconds after Clark. Graham Hill ended the race in 3rd, he was 1 lap down. Mclaren crossed the line in 4th, he was also 1 lap down. Bandini finished 5th, he was 1 lap down as well. And rounding off the top 6 was Joe Bonnier, who was 2 laps adrift. The fastest man of the race was Dan Gurney, who posted a lap time of 1 minute 29.1 seconds. Welcome to the East London circuit in South Africa, where a lap starts off with a long run down into turn 1, a fast open right-hander. Be careful though not to let the car go too wide. Next we have a fast right-hand sweeper that takes us into Copacabana corner, a slow right-hand hairpin. Gate Bend is next, another fast right-hand sweeper, and it brings us into the S's, a medium speed right-left chicane. Be very careful on the entry into the chicane as it is very easy to overshoot. Next is Cox Corner, that's COX, a medium speed left-hander, and it brings us into the sweep, a medium speed right-hander. Lastly, we come into Beach Bend, a right-hand hairpin that brings us around onto the main straight, and that is a lap around the East London circuit. And here we are in qualifying for the South African Grand Prix, coming around to set our first and only qualifying lap, a 1:34.268. Not a very good time, but I couldn't really go any faster as I kind of come through this corner. I wanted to try and do another lap, but as you can see, I came into turn 1 here very wide, and then kind of messed up everything, and I kind of felt like I didn't want to do it anymore, so that's pretty much it. And here are the previous Grand Prix, South African Grand Prix winners. Well, the previous South African Grand Prix winner, as my car kind of goes insane there a little bit. Hopefully that won't end in a disqualification or something. Anyway, we have Jim Clark on pole with Ireland in 2nd, Dan Gurney 3rd, 4th is Richie Ginther, Tony Max is 5th, and Graham Hill rounding off the top 6. Then we have Gerhard Mitter in 7th, Lorenzo Bandini in 8th, in 9th we have John Surtees followed by Phil Hill in 10th. Then in 11th we have Jim Hall in the British Racing Partnership car, followed by Jack Brabham in 12th and Joe Siffert in 13th. Bruce Mclaren is 14th, 15th is Joe Bonnier, and Chris Amon sitting nicely in 16th. Tony September 17th, 18th is Giancarlo Baghetti, 19th Hap Sharp, Ludovico Scarfiotti is 20th, 21st is Maurice Trintignant followed by Maston Gregory in 22nd, Andy Higgs is 23rd and Karel Godin de Beaufort is down in 24th. So that is the great lineup for the South African Grand Prix, a big race for both Andy and Dan Gurney here. This is for the championship, so we better hope this goes very well, especially for Andy obviously. We wouldn't want Gurney to win the championship, now would we? And we are off kind of a slow start there, but that's kind of par for the course, especially this season with these highly slidey cars. And there we see Maston Gregory, losing control of his Team Parnell Racing car and takes out one of the Porsches. As we come through turn 1, we move up into 19th. Jim Hall is there at the side in the BRP, and we move up into 18th. That's just one corner. That's quite nice, and well, that start was again pretty much par for the course here. People tend to lose control of their cars tended to lose control of their cars quite often this season, as we have a look at a replay of the start, and there we see Maston Gregory losing control, running wide and crashing into the Porsche, and I'm pretty sure they are both out of the race, but we'll have obviously replays of that specific incident. Yes, indeed, we see we're now following Maston Gregory as he crashes into the orange Porsche there, and Maston Gregory ends up at the side of the road and out of the South African Grand Prix before even reaching turn 1. And here we see a replay of Hap Sharp, who goes a bit wide, touches the grass on the outside there, loses control, he's upside down and out of the South African Grand Prix as well. Oh, he is back up on his wheels, but still out of the race. Next we have a replay of Jack Brabham. I'm not sure which corner they are in, and well, I speed up the footage a bit here because I cannot see anything because this... Oh, and something happened to get Brabham at the side of the road there. Next we see a replay of Chris Amon, who tries to overtake Andy Higgs but loses control of the car, gets collected by someone else, and he is out of the race. Then we have a replay of Giancarlo Baghetti, who has a suspension problem and then pulls to the side of the track and is out of the Grand Prix as well. And finally we have a replay of Innes Ireland. I'm not quite sure what's happening. This camera angle, by the way, is absolutely useful for making commentary on what's happening. I couldn't have placed it in a better place, in a better position myself. It shows all the action, you can see everything, very exciting camera angle. So thanks for the developers of the track to put that camera there. It was very, very useful for making useful commentary on what was going on. Anyway, we now move on to lap 2, and Joe Stifford managed to overtake him, so we now fall down into 15th and a few seconds later, as we come through the final corner here, we saw Stifford lose control of the car. I kind of panicked and forgot to brake, forcing me to go wide. However, I managed to get a position. We are now up in 14th, so that's quite nice. Then later on lap 3, Joe Bonnier managed to catch up to us and overtake us, so we are now back down in 15th. So that was kind of well, pointless, but at least we were a bit higher for at least a little tiny bit. And here is a replay of Graham Hill. Again, very useful angle for making useful commentary on what's going on, as we now move on to lap 4 and overtake Gerhard Mitter for 13th, so doing pretty good, chasing after Bonnier once again, although I'm pretty sure we won't be able to catch him considering how easily he overtook us, but that's not going to stop Andy from trying. And Jim Clark is out of the South African Grand Prix, so that should move us up into 12th. Yes, indeed it does, as we see a replay of Clark. He goes wide, touches the grass on the outside there, loses control, and ends up at the side of the road in the number 12 Lotus, and he is out as well. We now move on to lap 5 as Richie Gizar overtakes us very easily, so we drop down to 13th as we come through turn 1 here. We are catching up to him through the corner, however as we reach the straight he pulls away very, very quickly, so I'm not quite sure how he does it, but anyway. We now move on to lap 7, chasing after Tony September at the moment, as we take a look at a replay of Bruce McLaren, who comes around to set the fastest lap of the race, and in fact he also posts the a new track record, so that's pretty nice. He beats his own a track record from last year by quite a bit. I kind of forgot the numbers, but it was quite a big margin. Anyway, we now move on to lap 10 and we have a replay of Lorenzo Bandini. Again, that was a very useful camera angle, so I could see everything. Anyway, on lap 12, someone, I think Phil Hill managed to lap me here. I tried to give him a bit of space, but I went off the track. As we now take a look at a replay of Joe Bonnier, who something happens to his car, drives straight off the track into that earthen embankment and into the spectators, so he pretty much killed someone. As we now move on to lap 16, I kind of missed my braking point by, well, quite a lot, and ended up crashing into the fence. It's pretty much my fault because I wasn't paying too much attention. By the time I realized that I had to brake, it was pretty much over. I couldn't slow down the car enough, because as I said at the very beginning of this season, the brakes on these cars are absolutely useless really. You have to start braking 2 corners ahead of the corner you want to slow down for, so that's not very useful. As we now move on to lap 17, and Bruce Mclaren loses control of his car and ends up pretty much where Andy ended up as well. Then we move on to lap 20, and we have a replay of Maurice Trintignant, who retires, and again we had that very useful camera angle. Then we move on to lap 21, where Gerhard Mitter apparently has a problem with his gearbox. He pulls into the pits, kind of pulls across and then into the pits. I'm not sure why he didn't use the proper pit entrance, but oh well. And then we move on to lap 24, where Gerhard Mitter has a problem with his suspension and he is out of the race. Next we have a replay of Ludovico Scarfiotti with a gearbox problem, pulls into the pits and he is out as well, so that's that. Then we move on to lap 25 with John Surtees, who has a suspension problem. He pulls to the side and he is out of the South African Grand Prix as well. And finally, also on lap 25, we see a replay of Phil Hill. I think I saw a bit of black smoke coming out of the rear of that car, and we once again move to this interesting position with the very helpful camera. And we now move on to lap 28, the final lap of the race, and we see Dan Gurney, unfortunately for us, thankfully for him, coming around to win the South African Grand Prix and therefore win the 1963 World Drivers' Championship. Ginter finishes second, Jim Hall third, and I missed the last 3 there, and here are the retirements. Unfortunately, we number ourselves among them. Quite a disappointing result here, but hey, and we were so close to winning the championship as well, so that's quite disheartening, but there's not much we can do about that at this point, so better luck next year, I guess. Anyway, here are the career statistics, and this was Andy's 121st Grand Prix. His best start is from first, has 8 pole positions, has set 17 fastest laps. His best finishes in first, has completed 78 races, 62 of them in the points, has won 36 Grand Prix, 4 at the Indianapolis 500, 6 in Monaco, has 7 championships under his belt, has scored a total of 421 points, has retired 43 times, has experienced 2,620 out of 3,247 laps, has 6 bronze trophies, 13 silver trophies, 36 gold trophies, and as an extension, 36 podiums. And here is one final look at the championship standings. Dan Gurney wins the 1963 Drivers' Championship. Andy Higgs finishes the season in second. Phil Hill and Bonnier sharing third. Richie Ginter fifth. Jim Hall sixth. The last person to score points is Karel Godin de Beaufort, down in 22nd. And at the very bottom of the standings we have Ludovico Scarfiotti. With that said, let's move on to the Constructors' Championship. And here Brabham Racing win the 1963 Constructors' Championship. Team Lotus finish the season in second. Automobili Turismo Esport and RRC Walker Racing Team are sharing third, Cooper Car Company and British Racing Partnership sharing fifth, and the last team to score points are Scirocco Powell Racing down in 13th. So that was the South African Grand Prix. A very disappointing end for the season for Andy. It was so close to winning his 8th world title, but it just wasn't meant to be, it seems. Hopefully 1964 will be a little bit better. Hopefully. It could just as well go very horribly, so who knows what lies in store for us. But anyway, that is the end of the 1963 Formula 1 World Championship. Once again, a pretty bad, or rather disappointing end to the season for Andy, as well as Team Lotus. Again, we were very close to winning the championship, both the drivers and constructors, but it just didn't happen. Again, if I would have paid a little bit more attention there on lap 16 and braked a little bit earlier, I could have avoided that crash, but as it stands, well, that didn't happen. And that ruined the entire season and all the work put into it. So yeah. Anyway, that is the end of this video. Not much more to add to that. You can draw your own conclusions based on what you saw, I guess. So the moment this video goes live, you will have about 2 or 3 more hours to vote for next season's team if you haven't done so already. So make sure to check out the link in the description to cast your vote for whichever team you would like Andy to drive for in the 1964 season. I also have a second channel where I will be playing all sorts of different games. At the moment I'm doing a playthrough of Homefront and the Red Solstice, so if you're interested in any of those games and more, there will be a link in the description to my second channel as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, stay sharp.